YouTube Studio
or YouTube.
but it's why is it? But it's a different thing.
Okay, and we're ready to go.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we're right there. Look at that. See, it has the numbers up there. Hi, everybody. Whether you are with us now or whether you are joining us in just a little bit or later in this week, it's so good to be with you guys. Hi, hey, Crixus. What's up? Okay, so I'll try not to distract myself too much by seeing all your chats. Anyway, so for those of you that don't know, for all of my first graders, you've never met Mr. Eric, and Mr. Eric is my dad, and he is a composer, but not just a composer. He's also an orchestrator, which we will talk about for a little bit in just a few minutes. He's also a conductor. So when we watched all those conducting videos, that's part of my dad's job, all of those different things. He's also a teacher as well. He teaches at USC, and he teaches people how to write music for film and for cartoons and for TV and video games, all sorts of fun stuff. So, do you have anything that you want to say about yourself before I ask you some questions?
No, I mean, you introduced me pretty well there, and it's fun to be with you guys. I'm sorry we're not at school. I always have a lot of fun when we come to school and we play cartoons and talk about them and everything. So we'll try and have as much fun today as we can.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, hi, Bailey. And your sister goes to USC. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
Maybe she has walked by. Fight on, fight on. Yeah, maybe she's walked by my dad on campus. Okay, so let's start asking you some questions. And by the way, if you have any questions that come up in your brain, just leave them in the chat and maybe we'll be able to get to them if we have time at the end. So, Dad, what do you do at your job?
Well, I do lots of things. So, as Stephen told you already,
you have to call me Mr. S.
Oh, Mr. S.
Mr.
Okay.
Schmidt.
Mr. S. Mr. Schmidt.
We're not allowed to use first names.
Mr. As my son, can I call you my son?
Sure.
Okay. As my boy here, as Mr. S already said, I work on all sorts of different productions and products. So I don't work for any one company, and so I'm what's called a freelance person, and you can be a freelance person in lots of different kinds of jobs. You can be a freelance carpenter, you can be a freelance writer, writing books, and that kind of thing. And so I'm a freelance musician. You know, musician is sort of like my overall umbrella that I'm under. But underneath the umbrella of musicians, there's lots of other like little categories, right? So you can be a freelance musician and you can play the cello, or you can play the tuba, and you can play guitar in a rock and roll band, okay? Or you can play in a concert band, or you can play in a marching band, you know. And when you guys get a little older, you'll be able to join, you know, like a band in high school. You can play it, which is a lot of fun. So, so when I was young, I played clarinet and saxophone in bands and marching bands and jazz bands and rock and roll bands and stuff. So that's where I started. So underneath my musician umbrella, there's all sorts of other jobs. So if you're somebody who's really, really loves your computers and really likes sound, you could be what's called a recording engineer. He's a person who sits in a studio and takes all the musicians and all the sounds from our synthesizers and mixes it all together. It's a pretty neat job, actually. So as Stephen alluded to the jobs that I have, sort of like my main job is I'm a composer, but I don't write songs. Okay, I don't write songs. Is music that has lyrics and words to it. Okay, I write what's called underscore, and it's usually done with an orchestra. Sometimes it's done in all my magic boxes back here on my computers, which make all sorts of interesting sounds. So I write what's called underscore, and the reason we call it underscore is because it's music that is placed in any kind of, it could be a movie or a TV show, or even a video game, and it could be commercial even, or it could be music in a theme park. Okay, so we call it underscore because the music is underscoring, which means it's sort of laying underneath and it's sort of lifting up the drama of whatever we're seeing on the picture that we're looking at. Okay, so that's what I write. And so the underscore doesn't have any words, and it's very dramatic. So especially when I'm writing animation music, we make it really super funny if it's funny, and if everybody's mad, we make it super mad. And if everybody's goofy, which is usually all the time, especially if you're a Warner Brothers character, because they're all goofy guys over at Warner Brothers, then we make it special, goofy sounding. So that's sort of my first job, and someone will, somebody at Warner Brothers or at Disney, where I've done a lot of work, if they're working on an animated series, they could call me and say, Eric, we would like you to work on this show. Come on down. And I go down and I watch the cartoon with them, and it has no music in it. And we decide where we want to put the music and what we want the music to do. We do the same thing with a TV show or a movie. We go in and we do a thing, what's called spotting, where we pick our spots where we start the music and then we end the music. So that's one of the first things we do. So then I come home and I write the music, and then I get musicians together and we go to a recording studio and we record it. And then when I'm at the recording studio, then I'm usually the conductor, because I like yelling at people, as Stephen will tell you, Mr. S will tell you. So, but it's a lot of fun, because see, when I work, I'm here all by myself. Mm-hmm. You know, this is my office, and my house is right down the hall here. Okay, so I don't have to go very far to get to work. I don't even have to drive to get to work. It's pretty handy. Yeah. So I'm here all by myself when I do my work, and as we've discovered now, when you can't go to school and see your pals, it gets sort of lonely being at home all the time. It doesn't. You know, we miss being around people. We like being around people because we're designed to be, as human beings are designed to be, with other human beings. So when I go to the recording studio, I like to be out in what's called the recording space, on the podium, which is this raised platform so that everybody can see the conductor. And so I like doing that. There's also another part of my job Stephen talked about is, and this is these are all little, like, sort of little areas underneath our musician umbrella, okay? And that's of what's called an orchestrator. So an orchestrator is someone who takes what the composer has sort of scribbled down really fast, because sometimes I have to write music so fast, I don't have time to really do it all myself. So I can scribble out. It's sort of like taking notes, or if any of you, maybe you'll do a pencil drawing, right? And then you'll paint it, right? And then you would put all the colors and everything. So what an orchestrator does is he takes my pencil drawing, he puts all the colors, and then what he does is he puts all the individual parts for the different instruments in the orchestra on a big piece of paper, which is called a score paper, right? We have some, maybe we'll show you guys. And then, so all the music, we can see all the music that's right there. So I also, I sort of really started my career as being an orchestrator, working for other composers, and then it sort of moved into more composing. And so that's what I like to do. It's a lot of fun. But I don't go to work like every day, and I don't work from like 9 to 5. Some days I'll work from 9 to midnight, and then some days I won't work at all. I'll go outside and work in the yard, or I'll, play a video game all day. I don't know. So it's sort of handy.
Video games.
I know I can't play video. I've written music for video games, and I'm awful at them. I can't.
That's okay. We'll forgive you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Well, that's a good sort of big overview of all the different things that you do. So before we continue, I just wanted to say, let's see, I missed saying hi. Hi, Evan. Hi, Ian. Let's see, you said hi to Bailey. Let's see, I don't know who TPNLMs is, but I guess we have Alexis. Alexis is here. Eliza. Yes, Evan, liking Tom and Jerry. You're exactly right. On which games? Fortnite. No, my dad hasn't done any Fortnite games, but we'll talk about some of the things he's worked on in a little bit, including the question that was asked about if he has worked on any music in Disneyland. But let's move on to our next thing. So you did a good job answering a bunch of the questions that I was going to ask you. So maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the tools that you use for your job. And obviously, because my dad talked about how he writes the music and then he orchestrates it as well. So he decides what notes are going to be played by certain instruments at the recording session. And then the third thing, he shows up and he conducts the music himself. So obviously he probably has different tools he uses for each job. And we see a bunch of them behind us right here. So Dad, maybe you could give like the 5, maybe you just point out some of the things that we use here.
All right. So like a lot of businesses today, what do we use? Well, the one tool that all businesses use now is the computer, right?
Mhm.
And I'm old enough that when I started writing music, there were no computers. Can you imagine that? And there were no cell phones, right? Yeah, I know. It's really
Crazy.
weird to think of that. So I just wrote my music on paper. So this is what's called a sketch I was talking about, right? You know, and so that's my music that I would write on a piece of paper, okay? And then we would give that, and we copy parts out for our instrumentalists, and then we would record it. Well, on that, I'm not using live instruments. I'm using all these instruments that we have in our computers. And I have 2 big towers down here. You can see, and I have 3, and a laptop and 3 screens.
So you guys, for those of us that have used GarageBand, we are very familiar with actually what he does. So we've spent some time taking all these instruments that are inside of our computer, our iPads, and we can create music with it. And my dad does the same thing. It's just he has a lot more instruments than we have on an iPad. He has a whole bunch of computers that are filled with these instruments, and it allows him to be extra creative. And it also means that he doesn't even have to go to a recording session sometimes. Sometimes all he needs to do is just sort of like what we do on our iPads, but he does it in a way that makes you think you're listening to a real orchestra, which is pretty cool. Let's answer some of these questions. So, Dad, you mentioned that sometimes there are any music that you hear in a theme park, like Disneyland or Magic Mountain, anything like that, that people are hired to make the music that you hear. Have you worked on anything like that?
I have not recently. I did a lot years ago with a friend of mine. We did some of the parades at Disneyland, and then I had some of my music was actually at Six Flags up here at Magic Mountain, because they used to use the Looney Tunes characters. You know, the Looney Tunes characters. Those was the Bugs Bunny and all those guys. And since I wrote a lot of music for them, so yeah, it was weird because I was standing in line at a ride one time, and all of a sudden I go, "Wait a minute, that sounds familiar. What is that?" So yeah, so that's sort of fun. But no, I haven't done anything for Disneyland lately. I hope, when's Disneyland opening? Do we know?
I have no idea.
I hope it's pretty soon.
Let's see. And in terms of video games or things like that, you got to work on some of, I don't know, you guys might be a little young for it, but a few years ago, there was a series of games called Uncharted that were a really big deal. And then you've also worked on Final Fantasy games, which are a big deal too. Just depends though, but nothing like Fortnite. That's a little bit different. How about this? What is your favorite instrument to use while producing music?
Well, I have to, when we're hooked up to the computers and I'm producing music in my computers, I have to use this electric piano here because that plugs in. But for playing music, there's nothing like a real piano because it feels good. It puts the sound up into the air, and when the air vibrates, it feels good to us.
Yeah.
That's why live music is always fun to go to, because it's much better than just putting on your earbuds.
So you play piano and you also play saxophone, right?
Yeah, but I'm okay at piano and saxophone, because if you want to, like a lot of things, if you want to get good at something, right? If you want to be a really good baseball player, guess what? What do you do all the time? You play baseball and you practice baseball, okay? And so when I was in school studying music, I was spending my time learning how to compose and write and print out music and all this stuff. I would spend more time doing that than practicing piano or saxophone. Okay, so I play them well enough to get by and compose, but I'm not. I can't make a living playing saxophone. You have to be really good.
Yes.
And I hire the best players in the world, and they make my music sound really good. So I can't complain at all.
So because you could have made a different choice to try and practice a lot to be a professional saxophone player.
Mhm.
You could have tried to practice a lot to be a professional piano player. You obviously chose some different things. So what inspired you to be a composer?
When I was originally, I studied architecture, and so I was at architecture school up in San Luis Obispo. Which, when you get to go to college, go to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. It's a great place to go to school. And so I came and visited. My parents were living here down here near Los Angeles, actually out in Calabasas, if you guys know where that is. And so my dad had met a guy who was a professional composer, and he was writing music for a TV show. And my dad said, "Well, can we come and see it?" And he says, "Yes." And so it was down at the MGM studios in one of the big recording studios. And I'd never seen anything like that before, and this is a long time ago. It was before Universal Studios was open. So going onto a studio lot was like a pretty cool thing. It was like not everybody got to go there. Right. So we went into the recording studio and hear all these great musicians, and they pass out this music, and they've never seen it before. They've never practiced it, and they played it, and it was perfect. I'm going, holy mackerel, what is that? That is too neat. And then they played through it again, and they recorded it, and then they went on and then they had them another piece of music they'd never seen before, and they played that perfect too. I'm going, this is the coolest way to make music, because it sounds so great, and it's perfectly played, and it's very exciting, and it matches with the drama of the picture that we're seeing there. I go, wow, I think I want to do this. This looks like a lot of fun.
So you were actually pretty old when you discovered this way of making music and realized that you just wanted to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I was 20 or 21. Mm-hmm. And when I teach at USC, I ask my students, I said, so when did you think that you wanted to write music for movies? Oh, when I was 4 and I saw Star Wars, episode 9 or whatever. Just that's what I decided. I'm like, geez, you decided when you were 9 years old, 4 years old or 5 years old. And with a lot of things, then when you find that you really like doing something at an early age like that, it helps a lot, because then it sort of guides you into what you want to study and what you're interested in, and it helps you in school. Like if you want to be a rocket engineer, guess what? You have to be good at math and physics, right? So, but if you want to be a violinist, you don't have to be as good in math and physics. So it's always exciting when I see young people who can decide earlier on that, oh, I'm really interested in that. That looks like fun, and I think I want to try and do that.
So once you decided that you wanted to be a composer and to be involved with music in this way, did you have to go to a special school, take special classes, pass a test to be able to do this?
Interesting. So I went to Cal State University in Northridge, and I studied composition, and that's what my degree is in. And then I went to UCLA, and they had just started a sort of an extra program about film writing, and so I took that. But it's interesting because no one's ever asked me like what my grade point average is. When someone calls me up for a job and says, "Eric, what's your grade point average? Did you get A's in composition?" And and I don't have any advanced degrees. Like I'm not like a real doctor, professor, or anything like that. I just been writing music since I was 15, which is like 50 years ago. And eventually, if you do something long enough, you might get good at it. So
yeah. But you just put a lot of practice into it.
I put a lot of practice into it, yes. But when you go to music school, they have a thing called juries. If as a player and as a composer, and you have to like perform to a certain level, or they won't let you out. It's like a test, and you have to pass the test. Which means you have to play your instrument pretty well, or you have to write a piece of music that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm assuming you don't have a uniform that you have to wear for your job, right?
No, I don't.
No, composers don't have
It'd
to
be
wear
cool
a thing.
though. It'd be cool to have a uniform or at least a hat. Wait a minute, I think I have a hat over here. Let me go get it. Where are you getting? I'll go get a hat.
It's probably going to do something ridiculous. Okay. I'm going to figure out what my next question is. I think I know what hat you're pulling out, and I'm going to be embarrassed.
I think, if you really want respect, you should look the part. So I think if I wore a hat like this more often, this is actually a cavalry officer's hat from World War I. So don't you think that would look sharp if I was leading my orchestra, conducting with my hat on? Wouldn't that look really professional? I love my hat. So I bought a new baton. You see, it's the white one, and I've used it a couple times. And guess what, guys? This is not a real conducting baton. Do you guys know what this is? Can you guess what this is?
They know what it is.
They know? Yeah.
So tell them, just in case there's somebody that doesn't know.
All right. So I went to Harry Potter Land. Is it called Harry Potter Land at Universal? What's it called?
Harry Potter World.
Yeah. And went into the wand shop. Yeah. So, and there's only one wand that is light colored. All the other ones are dark wood, right? And guess whose this is? This is Voldemort's wand. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh my gosh. They guess bone though. It is. I guess it does look. It is bone, isn't it? It looks bony. I guess.
Maybe the handle is bone, but
okay. I don't know why we're talking about this. We're supposed to be talking about him being a musician. Okay, let's go to the next question. Oh, you have mentioned. I think you've already answered this. That you work with lots of other people at your job. You work with the musicians. If you're writing music for a movie, you have to work with the director, and you have to work with lots of different people. So you did a good job answering that. Do you think other people should try to get a job like yours?
Well, again, you need to be passionate about it, and you need to be really well trained. And I think it's harder today. And I see this when I teach my master's students at USC, and some of them have actually been out working in the music business for a couple of years, and they come to our program because it's actually the best in the world, to specifically study here in Los Angeles, which is right, where a lot of the movies are made and TV shows are made. So it makes sense to study film scoring in a place where they make films. So yeah, if you want to do it, it's really hard. And the reason it's really hard is that you need to have really like two things going. You need to be a really good musician, and have a good musical sense. And it helps a lot if you're what I would call a broad musician, somebody who knows all sorts of music, and, so I've played classical music, I played jazz, I played rock and roll. I haven't done a lot of rap. I wonder why. But so, and I enjoy listening to lots of different kinds of music. So it's very helpful to be very broad in what you've listened to. And then you have to study, and it takes a lot to study to be a composer. There's lots of things to learn. There's all sorts of techniques, and there's all sorts of, when it comes to writing for the orchestra, you have to know what each instrument can do, and it takes a long time to learn this stuff. So there's just like the music part. But now today, because of our magic boxes, right, that we all have, you also have to know a lot of technical stuff. And frankly, I don't know as much of the technical stuff as some of my students do, because they had an iPad in their crib when they were, 1 year old. But all you guys, you really are really super good at running your computers. So and we use our computers for all sorts of stuff. When I'm working on a film, we actually put the film into the computer so I can watch it and write the music at the same time. And then the computers are producing all the sounds. And I also have a program that prints out the music so I can pass out the parts to everybody. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 4 or 5 computer programs that I need to know how to use pretty well. And so And so not only do you have to know how to use them, you have to go buy them, and they're not cheap. So you have to make
So the
it.
two things are pretty much like you have to know a lot about music and you have to know a lot about technology as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say the third part is too, like it goes anytime that you're doing a job where you have to know work with lots of different people, you also have to be good at working with other people. It helps to be a nice person, it helps to be a kind person, helps to be a good listener, and it helps to understand what other people might be asking of you. To like every time you have to start working on a new project, you have to take what somebody is asking you to do and then figure out exactly what they want.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's a little challenging. So that's another thing too. You have to know how to work with people. Do you like your job?
I like my job a lot. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard.
What is the hardest part of your job?
If I write something I think is really good and I turn it into my director and they don't like it, it's like, oh, what did I do wrong? Because it's sort of personal. I try and write something that's the correct thing.
Well, that's actually a good thing for them to know because so what his job is, if he's writing music for a movie, he basically has a boss or a teacher, right? So we call them the director of the movie. And if he writes a piece of music for a specific part of the movie, then he has to send it into the director. When the director listens to it, if the director doesn't like it, guess what? He has to rewrite the entire thing. Mm-hmm. So imagine if you had an assignment from your teacher and if you didn't do exactly what they wanted you to, you had to restart every single time. And basically, you have to do that as many times until the director gets what the director wants. Right, yeah. So that's a pretty hard thing to deal with. That can be a little discouraging at times, I'm sure. But
the other thing is if when a production is made, the music is not the only thing. There's the dialogue and there's sound effects that are also going on along with the visual. And sometimes I think a pretty good piece of music, and then the people are shouting all over it, and then on the sound effects, and there's a helicopter and explosions and footsteps and people burping and everything, and I go, wait a minute, I can't even hear my music anymore. And it's like, oh, that's sort of disappointing. It's like you can't really sense what you did.
Okay. Well, is there maybe a piece of music that you would want to play for us?
Let's play some wacky cartoon music. This is from Tom and Jerry.
I wish we could watch the cartoon with it, but we're just going to listen to the music. So
let's see.
You can turn it up loud.
I'll turn it up loud. And so this is classic Warner Brothers animation. So it's like going through all these different things. So what I'd like you to do, listen to this, and maybe on a piece of paper, maybe even on a chat, you can say, oh, at a specific place, do you hear somebody falling down? Do you hear somebody having a fight? Is somebody being chased? Is this
Tom and Jerry, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you guys know Tom and Jerry. So also think about, you can imagine what the characters are doing, like which one is falling down, which one is being a buffoon, all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's go here.
There you go.
There it is. Okay, so you heard lots of different things going on there, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely. There was a lot there. King of music. Oh, very good. Cool. Let's see. There was a good question. I think we are at the 30-minute marker, so we'll start to wrap things up a little bit.
Okay.
Who are your favorite musicians, types of music influences that you've had?
I grew up with lots of jazz, and I like jazz, like piano jazz, because you can sit there and have a nice dinner. I like rock and roll. Like I grew up listening to Earth, Wind and Fire. So these are old bands. I don't listen to anybody new like you guys do, because and it always happens that way. We all have sort of when we're teenagers, we have that 10 years where that music we listen to the rest of our lives.
Sure.
Kind of thing. Cool. And I like listening to classical music. So, I sort of approach my listening to it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm outside and I'm building something, I'll listen to some rock and rolly kind of thing. If I'm driving somewhere, I'll be listening to classical music on it, or I like country and western even, because the lyrics always tell a very interesting story, unlike some other forms. So that's the fun part. And now today, I mean, you can listen to anything at any time, anywhere.
Pretty cool.
It's way different than me having to go down to the record store when I was your age and buy a little record and bring it home and listen to it.
Yeah. So, cool. Mm-hmm. Well, are there any other questions that you guys might have for my dad? We'll give you maybe a few seconds to type those in if you have any, and if not, then we'll wrap things up.
Mm-hmm. This is a pretty cool way to do this.
It is cool. Well, thank you, Mrs. Bass, for reminding all of our scholars that these comments will be reviewed. So I haven't been able to pay attention to all of them, but I will be reviewing them, and your teachers will. So make sure that you're leaving appropriate comments. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any questions, so I guess we can leave it at that. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this time, and can everybody thank Mr. Eric? Thank you, Mr. Eric, for spending some time with us today. Miss you all. Hope you're all having a great week, and hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And I will see you guys later in case you haven't watched this week's lesson already. So with that, bye guys. Take care.
That works really well. What a great device.